What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the ban list. This is going to be split into two different sections. One, I'm going to talk about what I think will happen, what's more than likely to happen, and then I'll talk about what I want to see happen. So as far as, I've been gone for a while, so I figured, what's the most YouTuber thing to do? And talk about the ban list right when it's about to drop. It's not like I hadn't seen a whole bunch of other people upload this content already. So anyways, talking about that, what I think is going to happen with the pandemic still being a thing, I honestly don't think Konami's going to make a lot of drastic changes. I mean, judging by the last list, some people for some reason were surprised we didn't get a lot of changes when we don't have actual events, but it's neither here nor there. I don't think we're going to see a lot of crazy changes. We might see Tour Guide and Widow Anchor to 3, and that's it. Very little. We might see a crazy surprise card come off the list. If anything were to get hit, it would be older cards. It's not going to be the newer decks because they haven't had an event yet. And if you go looking back at what happened in 2016, where people were legitimately angry because Konami had an emergency ban list that hit Pepe before it even had an YCS in Europe. I don't think Konami is going to make that mistake again. I don't think they should do that as well. So I wouldn't expect super duper crazy changes in the middle of the pandemic. So before I would like to see happen, we'll start with, of course, S0 and Calamities. What do I need to save and say about these two cards? They should have been on the ban list a long time ago. When they originally hit Argent Chaos Force and, really hurt gimmick puppets for some reason, instead of getting rid of Zexal like they should, Zexal is one of those effects where it's only going to get better as time goes on. And the more things you have, there's always going to be a way to summon it. It's always going to be a problem. You honestly just need to go ahead and get rid of it and just, it's like things that are on the ban list, like number 86, like Dark Matter Dragon. These cards only get better as time goes on. So personally, I would like to see both it and Calamities banned. Calamities also is the same thing where you basically have to open an out for it or you lose. And especially when Calamities is backed up with things like Herald and Savage Dragon, you can out it because they have a negate for your out. So I think both these cards probably need to be on the ban list. I would rather they do that than maybe like touching any of the newer cards. As far as the needle fiber shenanigan decks, I don't think it's really healthy for the game when every single deck has the same line of plays. That's not really healthy for the game. Needle fiber into Link Cross or Auroradon is not really something I think Konami wants to keep around. Now, that being said, are these going to be hit yet? No, I don't think so. I think Konami's going to want an actual event with these cards before they actually hit them. However, Jet Synchron, I think if you don't, personally, I would like the needle fiber to hang around a little longer. I fully acknowledge that it needs to be banned at some point, but I think that the proper thing to do for now is to play this game of Whack-A-Tuner, where we figure out which tuners are causing problems with needle fiber interactions and what we do to fix that. Jet Synchron is a card I personally would prefer it banned. Limiting it slightly hurts the consistency because you have to either open a tuning or you have to open it, which makes it a lot less consistent. But I also think that it's much like the limit to servant of Endymion. It really doesn't hurt the consistency enough by limiting it. And you've also got other targets such as Quick Draw Synchron that you can play. Personally, I think they should just straight up ban this card. I think that's the proper thing to do. O-Lion is in a similar boat. Limiting it does nothing. You have to ban it if you're going to hit it at all. So personally, I feel like that's the way they should go. Especially if I personally don't want needle fiber touched, that would be what to go. As far as Destruction Sword, I think it's also much like Calamities and Zexal. A relatively accessible domain lock for free should not be a thing in this game. Any deck playing a Darkened Dragon that has Union Carrier can access this. That's just not fair at all. I know the couple Buster Blader players that use this card are going, what about my Buster Blader deck? But no, it happens all the time where you have a card like, look at Terror Top, for example, where you have a rogue deck that has a really good card, but if the meta decks use it better, it's going to end up on the ban list. I think it should be banned. As far as Eldritch and Adamancipators, I've only really played against Eldritch at locals. I have not played against Adamancipators, so I'm not super knowledgeable on the decks. However, I do know the main problem I think with Adamantipator is definitely Block Dragon. The amount of advantage this card enables is just unfair. I think being able to search 3 cards and being relatively searchable via Gallant Granite, it's just not a fair card by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I think the proper thing to do is ban it, because limiting it, it's still searchable, it's still accessible, so I don't think limiting it really accomplishes anything. It just makes it slightly less consistent. But again, as long as you have access to a rank 4, you can access this. So I think that is a problem for in general. And I personally think if they're going to hit it, they should just ban it. As far as Eldritch, I think the target card is probably Sanguine. I think that just the amount of grinding and being able to freely access Golden Lord is really, really strong. I think if you're going to hit Eldritch, this might be the card you want to limit, because putting it at 1 means you're only going to get that one. You're not going to constantly be able to grind out Golden Lords for free. So I think that would be the way I would personally hit it. But again, I'm not super knowledgeable in these decks. This is just I think my opinion is that they should not hit these decks yet, because they should have an actual event first. But if they're going to hit them, this is what they should do. So as far as the pendulum mechanic, I think it's been unfairly treated on the last few lists. As one of the reasons I haven't been playing as much in recent years. So personally, I think now that Electromite is gone, you could put Astrograph, Joker, and Double Iris all to 1. No, we don't need them at 3, but they're not going to be an issue anymore with Electromite gone. Astrograph Sorcerer was only banned because of interaction with Electromite. I don't think searching it off of Wavering Eyes is relevant in 2020. And same thing with searching with Time Star Magician. Yeah, you can, but it's not a relevant play in 2020. Joker's allows a sorcerer to have a really good search target, so you can use it after you can search it off of. You can then search it off and then do pendulum things with it. You can make a rank 4. I think it's a pretty strong card, but I also think at 1, it's perfectly fine. It was at 1 for a while with no problem. So I think that's what they should. Double Iris is probably the weakest of these 3 cards. However, I do think that at 1, it's also the most likely, it would be the most likely candidate to come off the list. Without Electromite, it's actually pretty hard to trigger this going first, because obviously you can't activate its effects. So what are you going to pop it with? You've got maybe Pendulum Sorcerer, Pendulum Storm, Wavering Eyes. You're kind of really stretching it if you're really going to search this card. And even at 1, yes, it's searchable, but you're using your Duelist Alliance search for this instead of something that can pop it. So I'm really iffy on whether this card is even an issue anymore. It's not. We can bring all of these cards off the list, no problem, with Electromite completely out of the picture. No, they don't need to be at 3. I'm fully acknowledge that they're pretty powerful cards, but 1 would be fine. Burning Abyss, I know I'm not the biggest fan of this deck, but I also acknowledge that it's basically been dead since they got rid of Snow. I think people really underestimate how much this deck relied on Snow, because Beatrice could put it in the graveyard. You can if you look at it, you can really see the difference between these 2 cards. Whether Snow's gone, now the deck's not even seen at any tables. So I personally think that, especially with the Phantom Knight support coming out in a few sets, I do think that it's possible to bring some Burning Abyss cards off the list, just to experiment and see how they do. I understand people have, bad memories of this deck, but Graph Seer loops are not relevant in 2020. Multiple Dantes are not scary, but as long as Beatrice stays at 1, I think these cards would be fine. But I do think that's something they should experiment with. As far as Pantheism and Argent Chaos Force, both of these cards should be, I think both these cards should be at 3 off the list. Honestly, Argent Chaos Force got a really raw deal when they banned it. I don't think it's really an issue anymore if they get rid of Zexal. And I just don't feel like it should be on the Pantheism. I think is the same boat. Monarchs haven't been relevant in years. It's 2020, not 2016. I think Pantheism is perfectly fine at 3. Blaster, now that we've seen what Tempest can do and it's not doing very much, I think it's time to maybe experiment pulling another Dragon Ruler off the list. I don't think Blaster is going to really do a lot. Blaster popping is not really a relevant play in 2020. We're not in 2013 anymore. So it's definitely the weakest of the 3 current banned Dragon Rulers, and I'd like to see Konami experiment a bit, pull it off the list. Things like it had strong interactions with, like Eclipse Wyvern and Dark Matter Dragon, are banned and not coming off the list anytime soon, so I think experimenting a little bit with Blaster would be a good idea. Then Toad and Dragonbuster, I honestly don't know why they put these cards to 1. I think it was just insurance in case they became a problem, but I think we've seen that the decks aren't very good. Paleo Frogs are not a relevant deck in 2020. ABC is not a relevant deck in 2020. With Instant Fusion at 1, you're not going to turbo out multiple of Bahamut Sharks to bring this out efficiently, really. And I just don't think that these cards let Paleo Frogs and let ABCs have their boss monster. They're not, multiples of these guys are not scary in a world where we have these crazy boards with like Savage and Herald. Just let them have their boss monsters. It's not really that big of an issue. Then Spiral Resort and Light Stage, I personally think both of these could come to 3. Master Plan was always really the enabler and the problem in Spiral, and now that she's gone, I think you could experiment a little bit and bring Resort a little bit off the list. Yes, it is arguably one of the most powerful field spells ever printed. I think it's only really, competition in that regard is maybe Diagram. It is a really powerful field spell, but I also think that without Master Plan, it's not nearly the issue that it was. Spiral, I'm not saying we should bring Quick Fix back, because obviously Quick Fix into Machine Dupe is a thing, but I do think that Resort coming up from 1 would not really be that big of a deal, especially in a world with Terraforming and Set Rotation are both at 1. Light Stage, I understand why they banned it originally, because it was a relatively generic engine that you could splash in it simply by playing a couple copies of Candina and Carabine in your deck, but I also think that now it's not, especially with the Orcus engine hindered, I don't think it's an issue anymore. Personally, I would like to see it come to 3. I don't think Trick Stars are very good in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I think just people just have this idea of what they were, not what they would be. So I think that you could probably pull both these cards off the ban list. It really wouldn't be that big of a deal. So anyway, guys, that about comes to the end of the video day. Let me know what you guys think of the ban list. What would you like to see? What changes do you think I missed? Let me know down in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. So Orstorm, signing out.